We checked the next forwarding address, a boarding house for women in the southwest end of the city. Frank and I interviewed the woman in charge, a Mrs. Frances Watson. We talked to her in the dining room of the boarding house, where she was polishing a set of silverware.
Well, of course, when she first came here, we didn't know it, but she was married. This is a home for single girls, and we have our rules and regulations, just like any other respectable place.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, as we came to find out later, Doris wasn't only married, but she was fighting with her husband. I understand he wasn't much at all. She was thinking of getting a divorce, as a matter of fact.
Did you ever meet her husband, Mrs. Watson?
No, I never did. I suppose it's just as well I didn't. I understand that Doris left him after they'd been married only a few months.
Uh-huh. You know what his name is, ma'am?
No, I have no idea. Doris always used her maiden name when she was with me.
And you never saw the man, Mrs. Watson? He never came to the house here?
No, I didn't say I never saw him. I said I didn't meet him. Yes, there was once when he came to the house to see Doris.
Well, what was the occasion? Would you mind telling us about it?
Well, it was most unpleasant, I can tell you that. Let me see now. Yes, Doris had been here about 6 months. Even by that time, I was beginning to see the real side of the girl. No character, officer. No character at all. It shows up every time.
Yes, ma'am. Would you go on, please?
Well, as I was saying, it was after about 6 months when this man brought Doris home late one night. About a quarter till midnight, I'd say. Upset the whole house.
Well, how was that, ma'am?
The two of them, this man and Doris, they stood right out in the hall there. They had a terrible quarrel. The language, it was dreadful. At the top of their lungs, too. My husband went out to quiet them down, but the man left before he had a chance to calm him down. Upset the whole house.
Mm-hmm. This man that the Fraser woman was arguing with, you sure it was her husband?
Well, as sure as I can be. That's what Doris told me, anyway, the day after. I called her in and told her I just couldn't tolerate behavior like that. It upset her quite a bit, I remember. She cried, said it wouldn't happen again. That's when she told me she was trying to get a divorce.
Was that what the big argument was about, would you know?
Yes, she said she wanted the divorce. Her husband didn't. He wanted her back with him. Certainly is sad the way some people mix up their lives.
Yes, ma'am. By any chance, did you ever get a good look at this man, the husband, I mean?
Well, he was tall and had dark hair. That's about all I remember. He was well-dressed, too.
I see. When Doris Fraser left here, Mrs. Watson, did she leave any forwarding address with you?
No, she didn't. I haven't any idea where she moved.
What kind of work was she doing while she was living here? Do you have any idea where she was employed?
Yes, that was one of the references she gave me. Furniture company down on Venice Boulevard, if I remember correctly. I have the address in my record book. Certainly is unfortunate, the whole thing.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
I even tried to talk to her before she left. Sat her down and talked to her for a whole afternoon. Guess it was just a waste of time.
Well, how's that, ma'am?
The trouble with her husband, terrible thing. He seemed to treat her so badly. Two of them fighting all the time. I believe she was actually afraid of him. She told me he was very jealous. He drank, ran around. That's why I couldn't understand it.
Couldn't understand what, ma'am?
Doris, when she moved away from here.
Yeah.
She said she was going back with her husband.
The landlady, Frances Watson, gave us the address of the furniture store where the murder victim had been employed, and we drove down to check with the personnel manager, a Mr. Collins. He said Doris Fraser had been fired from her job 10 months before. He said she'd been let out because she was constantly late for work and that she got into the habit of asking for salary advances too often. Collins also told us that he'd heard about the trouble between the Fraser woman and her husband. He said he'd seen the husband in the store several times when he came to call for his wife. He identified the husband as Stephen Arnold. The personnel manager gave us the last known address they had on the victim. The following morning, we checked it out, an apartment hotel in the East Wilshire area. She was still registered there, together with her husband, Stephen Arnold. But the desk clerk told us that Arnold hadn't been living there for the past 3 months. He had no idea where Arnold had moved, and he didn't know where he worked. While the desk clerk stood by, Frank and I went upstairs and checked the apartment.
You find anything, Joe?
Not too much, no.
Well, there's nothing in the bedroom. Like Ray says, she likes nice things, but that's about all I can figure.
Mm-hmm.
What you got there?
Looks like a letter she started and she didn't finish it. It's dated October 23rd.
What's it say?
Dear George, I've been meaning to write you before. That's all. That's as far as she got.
George, huh? It's the first time we've run to that name on this deal.
Yeah.
Means there's more than one man in her life.
A few more letters and bills here.
All unopened.
Yeah. Ad from a woman's store. Another ad, telephone bill, postcard. Here's one postmarked Santa Monica.
Check the name of that return.
Yeah. Stephen Arnold. 5 p.m. We called the office and checked Stephen Arnold through R&I. He had no criminal record. The return address, which he'd listed on the envelope of the letter to his wife, was 10826 Pacific Front Boulevard. We located it on the beach just below Santa Monica. It was a small dark concession owned and operated by the dead woman's husband.
No, I haven't seen Doris for a couple of months anyway. Why?
I understand you had an apartment with your wife in the East Wilshire neighborhood. That right, Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, that's right.
You mind telling us why you left?
No, I don't mind. I wanted to move closer to my work, that's all. That place was way too far out.
How is it your wife didn't move out with you, sir?
She wanted to stay close to town. She doesn't care much for the beach. Bad for her sinus.
Did you have an argument with your wife, Arnold? Some kind of a disagreement? Is that one of the reasons you moved?
Yeah, you might call it that. We're getting a divorce.
Is that so?
Yeah. It was the best thing all the way around. It's been nothing but fighting and scrapping all last year anyway. We decided to call it quits. Say, would you excuse me a minute? I got some cold drinks in this cooler here. Would either of you like a cool drink?
No. No, thanks.
Are you getting the divorce from your wife, Arnold?
Yeah, that's right. I'm divorcing her. Why'd you want to know?
Well, you remember that last time you saw your wife, the exact date, I mean?
No, I don't think I remember that. It's been at least 3 months, I'll say that much.
You spend most of your time down here at the beach, Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, that's right. I get in town a couple of times a month. Sure you wouldn't like a cold drink?
No, thank you.
I'll have one myself, if you don't mind. This water sure keeps you nice and cool.
Yes, sir.
How about last Tuesday night? Were you in town that night?
No, last time was 2 or 3 weeks ago anyway. Went in to see a show. I was working here last Tuesday night. Work here every night except Monday. That's the only night I'm closed up.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone who can vouch for that?
I don't think I get this. Why do you want to know?
Well, is there anybody who can vouch for you?
Sure. Half a dozen people anyway. The fellow who runs the place next door. The guys in the rest of the stalls up and down the way here. They can all vouch for me. I worked here till 1 a.m., same as usual. Just a minute. Hey, Vic. Vic.
Yes, Steve?
Come on over here a moment, will you? These fellas are detectives, Vic. I guess it's something about a jam my wife got herself into. They want to know where I was last Tuesday night.
Yeah?
They want somebody to vouch for me.
Sure.
Did you see Arnold last Tuesday night?
I was working next door. Steve was here all night.